接下来跟魏记交手，我觉得魏记他们最近打法偏于保守，而我们新队伍进攻性很强，所以我觉得他们应该守不住我们，所以希望在他们上拿下新的一份，让迎接更多的胜利。
You just heard from Bing commenting on how he hopes he can take some wins against Vici in the future. Well, he's already taken one, so perhaps a bit of precognizance from the mid laner of FPX.
Well, he had a completely wrong read. He said Vici are very, they want to play
passive.
very defensive,
yeah, exactly
passive,
right.
and that wasn't what we saw from Vici at all. So I'm hoping Vici can keep this up. Their best player the last game, I felt, was Cho'Gath. That long in the top lane, teleporting everywhere, leveraging the map. They need to continue that and try to play towards their bot side of the map and just keep their tempo going. This is the thing that led them over EDG, and we just hope they can keep it this way.
Yeah, and not to mention setting up by shutting down LWX. But now we're ready to set up shop for the game. Our casters are all prepared. Gentlemen, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Dom. And no, I really do agree with them. Like, we saw a lot more proactivity coming out of Vici, and to be honest, you have to when you're going against a team like FPX, because they will be up in your face, and if you don't respond in kind, then you just get completely taken away. It's like Bing was saying, our aggression is probably going to be one of the key reasons why we take the set over Vici.
Yep, but you always have to be afraid of the misread. I know this time around they expected a passive Vici, but that's not what they got. They got a Vici that were honestly constantly looking to fight early on in the match. And it was constantly going towards the bottom side of the map too. So I think that going into this one, FPX have to recheck their lens on what Vici are as a team, because it seems like that identity is changing around their top laner here, Loong.
At the same time, if you're confident enough in your team fighting to say, well, if you're going to meet us on the battlefield, then we'll just take you and we'll just keep on going and keep winning those skirmishes.
Oh yeah, I mean, that definitely was the result in the last game.
Yeah.
They took those fights constantly, even though FPX were starting to find themselves in that deficit. And Vici, at the end of that one, they were like, well, we should have won that game. There are multiple ways we could have actually ended it. And one of the major problems were, of course, we're kind of reaching too deep in team fights. We weren't going to win. So they have to know how the team fights are set, because the setup isn't there from FPX, but they can take those fights.
It's definitely outside of their comfort zone, so we'll see if they can actually do it again here as Vici actually move towards that style. We take a look at the bans coming through. It will be Kalista and Azir from FPX. On the opposite side, Caitlyn, Jarvan, and Tam Kench.
All right, so the Kalista, the Caitlyn being taken away kind of does create an early focus towards AD carries, where you don't want to pick your AD carry in the second phase, unless if you're LWX and you just have that Vayne just sitting around there. So I expect Martin to want to be able to pick up the Ezreal earlier on.
Shen was the final ban from FPX, which means a first pick, very fast first pick, in fact, from Vici Gaming. So going to get that one over to Easyhoon there in the mid lane.
Gives them the extra bit of mobility, which they were lacking in the last game. They saw the Tahm Kench flying across the map to help their members, of FPX's members, or kind of start fights. Right there, Vici found problems in getting to their fights immediately, and it feels like Ryze is going to be that solution.
Also another way out of a fight as well. So if Long misses the first bus, then he's got a second train to take, the replacement train, if you will. So we'll be able to disengage there. Oh, Camille locked in, and with the Sejuani as well. We definitely know that Camille's going top lane unless we see some really funky things like a Camille support.
Yeah, this is when you can start to kind of think about what Loong wants in this scenario, because the Camille very likely going into the top side of the map, and a lot of people are just kind of comfortable picking Camille blind. Sure, in the LPL, it's seen as that kind of flex pick going towards the jungle, and Pepper would be ecstatic to pick that up for himself. But Gimgoon says, I want that Camille. We've been in a lot of team fights, and of course we can isolate Martin, isolate Easyhoon in the scenarios with my ulti, and we can just look for dives constantly with the Sejuani lockdown, with the lockdown that I have as Camille. So right now, FPX already have a primary focus in their composition.
And we might end up seeing as well 2 carries in the top side. But what's for certain is Kha'Zix has been picked up by Crash. They'll be getting to Sejuani here. And that will be an Ornn lock-in from Vici.
Must have been a difficult decision here for Vici to move away from the Cho'Gath and pick up the Ornn. Ornn is a greater team fighter. He's going to have a little bit more of a difficult time in the lane versus the Camille. And Cho'Gath would have been a great answer for the laning phase, because Cho'Gath does quite well versus Camille earlier on with the base damage that he has with his vorpal spike. So looks like they'll kind of leaning towards team fights rather than Loong's laning phase.
I wonder how far Vici will spec into early game team fighting, whether they'll just look for like team fighting in general, because that's very much been the moniker from Vici so far, is we will look for team fights, but later on into the game. We'll see if Crash can actually accelerate that and whether the bot lane actually goes for something early game orientated.
Well, they're already kind of picking towards that. The fact that they kind of saw the first pick Sejuani, they're like, well, we're going to pick up Crash's Kha'Zix, something that he can really do quite a bit early in the game for. Because Kha'Zix, to be quite frank, kind of sucks going later on in the game. It's so hard for him to get that action going on, to be able to get to the back line a lot of times with how he builds. So he kind of plays front to back, throwing just spikes, evolved spikes into the team to slow him down. But early on in the game, we're going to have to see how Crash moves, if he can impact the jungle match, if he can get those early ganks down to get kind of threaten the side lanes of LWX and Gimgoon.
It's going to be 2 AD carry bans coming out from FPX here towards Martin. His Ezreal from last game, and the Varus as well out from game 1's bans.
So I was a little bit worried, the fact that Caitlyn and Kalista got banned out, and they decided to go into the second phase nonetheless. They even banned the Kog'Maw themselves, because FPX were really willing to just kind of first pick LWX's champion. Now here's the thing, LWX is a very large champion pool he's willing to go towards. You can even pick up the Xayah for himself, goodness sakes. There we go, he's already hovering it. Meanwhile, I haven't seen that level of depth coming out of Martin just yet.
He'll pick pretty much anything that's a hyper carry. He'll pick the Xayah, there's a Caitlyn available, he might even go Vayne again, and he has the last pick if they want to sculpt it around that. The only thing would be towards mid lane now, and they already know it's the Ryze. That being said, they will just look into Tristana now.
Alright, there we go. Now it's on the Vici's court. And I expect the Xayah pick, not the Jinx pick. It's not 8.2 where she gets the massive buffs. So it makes more sense to him to actually pick up, I would even expect the Lovers duo. Rakan's not banned either.
Could be picked up here, yeah, moving on to the top lane, and then Xayah, Rakan could be a very strong rotation here from Vici. Was going to be strong in those team fights, giving them away out in the early game as well.
And with how difficult it is to kind of pick Rakan into this current meta, with how many tank supports there are currently, Braum is the one champion that you can kind of put the Rakan into. Because, sure, he kind of protects the people behind them, but if you can get a double knock-up, Rakan does so well into kind of starting the fight while not getting blown up by the supports that we're currently seeing, like the Alistars. That is a good answer into the Rakan. Like the Tom Kench that just gobbles up whoever you were trying to eat to begin with. Says, why are you even picking Rakan at this point? Not only does he have a lot stronger laning phase with the extra damage you get with Xayah Rakan, the extra safety you get with the increased E range that you get with the Xayah, but also now his engage is a little bit more reliable, not knowing that he doesn't have that big of a beefy line to go up against.
Now, however, he is going to be jumping face first into a Cassiopeia, so we'll need to try and dodge out that petrifying gaze, and also that Miasma is going to be down there as soon as he arrives, so that will be a little bit difficult to play into.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit risky now. I love the Cassio pick into the Ryze, though. I really do love that matchup. Every single time Ryze is in the meta, you always kind of look towards Rookie, you look towards certain players that would love to pick the Cassiopeia. This doesn't do so well for FPX's style, though, because Cassiopeia is not that roaming mid laner, doesn't have that mobility to her going up against the Ryze. Ryze will be able to push out the lane unless if she pushes the wave and starts the trades, but she's going to be more focused to her lane rather than looking elsewhere.
I mean, definitely as this game progresses, they're going to have a bunch of damage with both a Tristana and a Cassiopeia, and maybe, hopefully, we'll look towards the jungle to see if they can bridge that over with the Camille, with the Sejuani, but yeah, definitely I expected more of a mobile pick in the mid lane, maybe even like something towards the Talia again, that type of pick, but either way, they seem confident enough to take the matchup in the mid lane, which will be good, as you said, into the Ryze.
Yeah. But styles aside, looking at the composition that FPX have for themselves, really strong kind of teamfight composition. One thing I love about Miasma here for the Cassiopeia is the fact that it does create that space for your AD carry. Throw Miasma out, Tristana has the ability to walk forward. Throw the Braum ulti out as well, gives Tristana the ability to also walk forward or kite back depending on the teamfight scenario. So there's so much space for the Tristana to look in these fights. The longer the game goes, then of course, the longer her range is. With what is it called again?
Draw a bead.
Draw a bead. The worst name possible. But yeah, more range. Great for Tristana.
There's actually so difficult against Tristana. You've got Camille as well to block anyone who's going towards her, and you look towards the engage out from Vici. You're going to have flanks coming in from Crash, as you said, later on to the team fight. He's going to be trying to play front to back, allow Xayah to actually get in there and actually deal all of that damage. Rakan also looking for those flanks. So Vici going to have to be very creative in the way that they find these fights.
Yeah, it's going to be hilarious to go into this one because we already saw it being said earlier on. Look at our aggression. We want to look to to these team fights, because Vici is not an aggressive team, but it looks like they want to put up a fight in this one as well.
Yeah, come over here and fight us. And Vici very much came up to that challenge. And it was nice to see because it was very much a change of pace for Vici. That being said, there were a couple problems in those team fights in terms of communication, especially when the action's hot. So in terms of the macro players, I would say Loong has been an incredible re-addition to the team because his teleports have been on point. Yes. The way he moves around the map, the way he communicates clearly in game is very much superior to what we saw from Meow. But when you get into those team fights, those split decision makings, if that's a sense. You know what I mean. Yep. But that's the problem. That's been the problem so far from Vici.
100%. Looking at both of these teams, you do see those kind of weaknesses in the team fights that they're both looking for. The fact that the TPs have been coming through with Loong, but of course, you know, finding themselves split up or choosing fights that they shouldn't be. That's what's drawing them back in a lot of these cases. But FPX, we're seeing that impulsive nature about choosing the dragon fight, not really kind of cluing in the top laner. So we saw poor TPs, but that really wasn't. I couldn't really blame Gimgoon in that scenario because he was put in a bad position where he's technically should have just stayed in lane and just allowed his team to die.
Taking a look at Martin's keystone here, it's actually gone towards the precision tree for his first tree, coming in with the fleet footwork in the AD carry.
Yeah, going towards fleet footwork, as you said, the fact that he's going to be able to build up that crit. He's one of the few Essence Reaver champions that we've seen in the game. So he's going to be allowed to just walk in, get the extra heal from the crit. Oh, good lord.
There's a lot of damage onto Chris very early, but this is going to be the stun down from those concussive blows and a full proc explosive charge. So lots of damage traded back on towards Caveman and Martin.
Yeah, really good focus from Crisp and LWX to kind of pick out Caveman, who jumped in there to start the trade to begin with. Had he found a freedom to get out of that trade, then that would have been Martin and Caveman really starting this lane off strong.
Yeah, Martin just going to finish off the rest of these minions, continue to push this one in. And very much got control over this laning phase here as they push it in, even though that trade went towards FPX. Looking towards the mid lane now. Easyhoon and Bing on this Cassiopeia.
Of course, Cassio's level 2. Don't want to walk up to the wave if you're Ryze. If he lands one Q, he's going to run at you with Twin Fangs. That's the last thing you want to be getting hit by.
Yeah, chase you down. Pepper into the top side here, able to defend Gimgoon. Is being pushed in currently by the Ornn, but pretty much what Ornn does to most matchups. He just keeps on pushing and pushing and pushing, at least for the first couple levels.
Look at the stats here for FPX. Not a lot of them are good. Early games having some problems. Baron percentage, of course, that's when you get a lot of questionable moments. Average game times, and pretty quickly.
Also, they are very much average stats. Like, they're right in the middle of the pool, like 6th, 8th, second, 6th, yeah. Like very much in the middle. And it feels like FPX should be very much a middle of the pack team. But when you take a look at their standings currently against the rest of the league, they are right at the bottom. They're 1-4 currently.
Yeah, definitely in a rough group to be playing. We're going to be having to see what happens next week in cross-conference when they start to face the Suning Gamings, they start to face the LGDs, and we get to get a real grasp of where FPX are in the league.
Taking a look at the keystones here. So Phase Rush to start for Bing, and the Ultimate Hat, actually, for this Cassiopeia. Gathering Storm on top of that.
Yeah, Gathering Storms is going to be a big one for the later portions of the game, but Phase Rush and Presence of Mind for me really kind of rings how this level, or at least how this lane has been playing. Because hit that level 2, you have Presence of Mind, the next 8 seconds you can just keep throwing Twin Fangs for however long you want. And Phase Rush is just the fact that you can just get all the more faster the abilities that you're landing.
We just saw a small gank attempt in the top lane there by Crash, trying to get onto Gimgoon. I thought he was going to cheese for a second, but did not interrupt the recall. Goes back to base, gets back onto the map. But that will give a bit of information to FPX, knowing where the jungle has pathed in the early game. So relieving some pressure definitely for Bing in this mid lane.
Yeah, it's going to also allow Pepper to kind of walk towards the bottom side of the map and know that he has the freedom to take his own camps and not worry too much about Crash, kind of just looking for that 1v1, looking for the invades.
Looking back towards the top lane, it should be normalizing in terms of CS now. Loong will still have a bit of an advantage as this wave resolves. A couple seconds. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, actually completely zoned away as LWX and Chris. This is a big minion wave that is mounting. We also don't know where Crash is because he's now back onto the map. Don't know if he's bot side.
Ooh. Freedom for Pepper to look for a gank here.
Especially if this wave pushes in. LWX might just allow himself to be tagged up. Chris jumps forward. Martin instantly flashes away. He knows what's coming. Pepper jumps in. Arctic Assault lands onto Martin. And he's got no way out now, having already burned the flash. First blood over to LWX. There's going to be a lot of damage from those minions. Just managed to get out of there.
Oh, wait a minute. Easyhoon.
Gank onto the mid lane. Actually coming out from Gimgoon here. Easyhoon flashed over the wall, but he got a flash in return. Bing finds the kill. Crash with the counter gank, but it's not going to be enough damage against Gimgoon. Bing was looking for the chase down, but he's a little bit low health to go for that tower dive.
2 kills for FPX early. early. And that's the fear when you're going up against Sejuani and Braum. You get tagged by one, and you're going to be sitting still for a very long time. Gets the Braum tag, gets the stun from it, and then immediately Pepper follows through with his own stun. So really strong play coming in by FPX to recognize how large that wave really was and was building up. Martin and Caveman wanted to hug by that wave and really force that wave through so they can trade under LWX and Crisp, because LWX and Crisp under that tower will be trying to farm up as much as they can. They don't want to lose the waves there. So you kind of bait them in, realizing that Martin and Caveman's priority is heavily into pushing the wave underneath tower. So go for a gank there, and it works out.
I'll tell you what, at the end of that call, I want to go full British. It's like, oh, he's low elf, he's going for that tower dive there, but now FPX finding this early game advantages. Once again, every single time, they always find a way. And this was actually in 2 split plays, also from a gank from Gimgoon. So actually just great to see the creative ways that they managed to do it. It's not the same cookie cutter way that they do it every single game. It's not always a skirmish, it's not always an invade. They just find a way, they find an opening. So they're constantly looking, constantly communicating.
And it's off the 2 priority picks they had in the pick ban. These were their first 2 picks, the Sejuani and the Camille. Camille, we've seen this a lot from Amazing J, even in last split, I would say. The fact that a lot of the reasons why he would play the Camille or Jarvan was because if he's doing well in his own lane, if he's pushing out the lane, then he can find the opportunity to gank mid. So he found that window that he was doing quite well into Loong for quite a long time, shoving in the wave, so he just went mid and found that gank onto Easyhoon's head.
It's resulted in quite a big CS advantage now for Bing. On top of that, he's got the 1 kill. He's got about 2 waves over him. And we've also seen another back out from Bing. Has picked up both of his mana items. In fact, the same mana items that Easyhoon wants to pick up on that Ryze. Both the Catalyst and the Tier here for himself. Plus, he's also picked up the Dark Seal. So Bing walked back into mid lane at a pretty strong power point for himself.
This is where you start to really worry about Vici's mid lane. It was already a bad matchup in favor of Bing. And now you're seeing Crash get pushed away time and time again when he's trying to just ward for Ryze. So it's going to be so hard for him to find any kind of grasp in the lane. So Easyhoon will get pushed in. Easyhoon, I don't think he'll get dive, but that just means Cassio will have the ability to look elsewhere on the map. Bottom lane, to me, already has kind of like glaring red lights about what's happening in the bottom lane. There was already 1 gank. Now if you add Cassiopeia to the mix with how well she's doing in her lane, Vici need a response because that could turn into a bottom lane dive.
Overall, it just seems like every lane is winning very slightly from FPX, some more than others for sure. Though FPX are going to try and double down. Move on to the first dragon of the game at 8 minutes, which is an Infernal Dragon. You have that advantage over the area, and plus Crash is in the top side of the map. He's looking towards this red buff, in fact. See if he can put down some pressure onto Gimgoon. Down the assist me ping, but decides not to go for it in the end. Infernal Dragon over to FPX.
Yeah, not a lot of options here for Crash because of where he is on the map. He's not going to dive top lane because Gimgoon will just have his ulti available to him. He'll be able to get out of there scot-free, so Crash did not go for that dive play with how the wave was stacking. Just went for the red buff steal. Sure, now Pepper doesn't have red buff. Who cares if he's able to get Infernal Dragon for his team?
It's going to be so much more impactful as this game goes on, especially because this is going to be a team fighting game. Like, we know that these fights, it's going to come down to fights. It's not going to be down to structures. It's not going to be any of that. It's all going to be down to these skirmishes and the team fights and going around these monster objectives. So Infernal Dragon is even more important in this matchup here. Crash is just going to continue going through his jungle, get over that donation to mid lane. And so far, Vici are just going back to the old habits, just trying to farm up, find advantages where they can, but mainly not looking for these fights just yet.
I'd say just because it's a smart response to how poorly the early game is. You don't want to accelerate an already losing matchup because that's how you find yourself in a 20-minute FF. So you're in a position right now, if you're Vici, where you do have to slow the pace of the game down to try and just kind of make it so it doesn't run out of control. Right now, Easyhoon wants his Rod of Ages, or maybe even the Abyssal Mask. He just needs that first item for himself so he can be comfortable walking up to the wave so he doesn't get chased down by Bing. That's the first step that they need to look towards. So as long as they can keep Bing interested in the lane so he doesn't start slithering towards the bottom side of the map, then that's a victory in and of itself.
We definitely said that he's not a roaming champion, but the fact that there's just so much pressure right now and the fact he's able to group up with Pepper may actually see him move towards the bottom side.
Yeah, there's 2 kind of ways to play out that mid lane. So the first way is him playing Talia to push out the wave and just ride on a wall towards the bottom side of the map. But him is just, this time, it's the first step is taking control of this lane and prioritizing Bing in this matchup.
Looks like a 3-way collapse coming onto Easyhoon. Instant flash and respect coming out there. Lands the Rune Prison. So a lot of ultimates and a lot of everything being burnt out by FPX. Gimgoon did not decide to use the ultimatum in the end. He was just slightly out of range, didn't want to use the flash.
Yeah, honestly, it was just they should have waited for Gimgoon first. Gimgoon would have been the one person to lock him down with either, of course, hook shot into flash, or if he gets away, hook shot into ulti, and then you follow up with Pepper's ult. You don't need to throw everything at the same time, because if he flashes away or just walks in an awkward manner, then you miss everything.
Easyhoon went with the safe option, instantly flashes away, so a lot of that pressure has now just dissipated. Though Pepper is moving into the bot side, just recalling in case there's any pressure coming in from Crash and the bottom lane of Vici. Doesn't seem to be the case, so we will get that recall off. Same thing in the top side, Gimgoon goes back to base. And actually, Loong has gone for a little bit of a change-up on this Ornn. It's gone for that Frozen Heart.
Here we go.
Crash looking for this gank on the mid lane. Bing instantly sees this, moves towards the top side of the bush, back into the sanctuary of his jungle, and the teleport coming in as well. Fantastic petrifying gaze. In comes the Ornn, gets a slowdown and the knock-up onto Bing here. He flashes away. Gimgoon looking for the defense. Easyhoon doesn't have the flash, can't chase.
Great play from Gimgoon, kind of recognized that Ornn was walking towards the mid side of the map. Had Gimgoon not responded, had he stayed in his own lane, that would have been a dead Cassiopeia.
Good stuff in the end there. As a response from FPX, and Bing will go back to base. Yes, he doesn't have both summoners, but we'll be able to continue farming out this lane now. Loong has actually gone for this Frozen Heart instead of the Iceborne Gauntlet. Typically, we see that every single time as the first item from Ornn. Gives similar stats, though, in terms of the mana. We'll be able to stay in lane for a little bit longer.
I kind of like the look from it. He's not going to be going for those auto-attack trades. Now, he has to get out of here.
That was not the time to use that, though. Loong will be able to get away because he did land the knock-up in the end onto Gimgoon.
There we go. But it really does impact the trades that Gimgoon wants to look for once he starts to get those auto attacks across. Loong is going to be able to be a little bit more defensive. He's going to be pretty helpful in the later portions of the team fight. Tristana is just shooting at his head, so immediately starting out with the Frozen Heart, I like it.
Yeah, Camille is surprisingly auto-attack for that nowadays with the extra attack speed she gets out from the hook shot. And Bing will finally go back to base here, or at least look for it, because Easyhoon wants the interrupt, though it was maybe a bait all the time. Goes Golden. Jumps
Wonderful.
back. The classic Ryze combination right now.
Yep, in the next patch, that just won't be there. But till now, live it up, Easyhoon. You get that opportunity to escape. So 2 escapes from him, and that's what's great about Ryze, is that so many attempts at his life, and he's able to get out with his own flash, able to get out with, of course, his ulti as well as a stopwatch, and now he's going to have flash again very soon because of Spellbook.
Remarkably safe in the early laning phase. I'm looking towards this river here. Here's a teleport coming in from Vici. Pepper walking right into this teleport, in fact. Does he have the flash? Yes, he does, but he's knocked up and charmed as well by Caveman. No chance to get over the wall. Great pick out from Vici.
Wonderful TP play from Vici once again. It looks like that's going to cost them 1 life, and they're going to be able to look for the next play. Right now, if you're Crisp and if you're LWX, you have to be a little bit more cognizant of a possible dive.
Now, this may actually turn into a mid lane play as well. In comes the Ornn. Will land the knockup onto Bing. Miasma is down, but he lands a petrifying gaze. What a turnaround by Easyhoon. Completely reading Bing like a book. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, Martin going to buy a bit of time with the stopwatch. He flashes out of the Glacial Fissure, but Chris laying down a hurt onto Martin. He's still staying alive, and Caveman back into the bot lane. The rocket jump will complete, but Crisp is trying to run away from this one. Crash picks up one, Martin finds the other. 3 kills cross-map by Vici.
So much is happening at once because it all started with Caveman roaming towards the mid lane, thinking that he could help his team to getting the kill onto Bing. But while that all happened, LWX and Crisp was like, let's just dive the Martin. Let's dive Xayah. Incredible idea. Stopwatch, ulti. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Oh, wait, it does. The rest of Vici come in to clash.
That's a big blunder there by FPX, and Vici able to capitalize. Lots of kills going their way. And the tower. This is a bit of an interesting teleport because they've already killed the tower. Now there's another teleport on this minion. You probably want to cancel that one. LWX coming in, but he does have the support of his jungler. Vici expecting more on the way. Have to respect this one, but Pepper, he's still going in. If Vici knew the amount of members around here, they would definitely take this fight. They just don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, they're really afraid because Cassio just kind of left the lane. So that was really interesting. That would be okay if the first TP landed. But it wasn't because the tower was going down. So look at the tower HP before you start to TP. And then the AD carry TPs through and you're like, okay, that's just an AD carry and a jungler. That's not going to be enough to take down the 3 members of Vici. So very interesting. And I guess the bluff works out. They got a free tower off of this.
It definitely was a bluff, Raz. I'm going to call that one the TOP cat play, where you just run in, have no allies behind you, but you prey on the respect that your opponent has. Get to see that mid lane gank one more time as Loong honestly just rotated from the bottom side play.
Yeah, I was worried for the bottom lane dive, and it didn't come to fruition. They were just trying to go for Cassio's head, and Easyhoon recognizes the one-way out Bing has was in that ulti, so he waits it out. In the meantime, this dive was happening. Look at Kha'Zix and Rakan darting it straight back to the lane, recognizing that Martin was left alone. So at this point in time, LWX and Chris, We're like, all right, let's get out of here. This is not a good play.
Crash finds the final kill on the back of that as well. So FPX, while they found the dragons in this game, they've managed to pick an Infernal and a Mountain for themselves. Vici slowly claiming back these kills, not so much through skirmishes, but through catches on FPX's initial plays as they go just a little bit too deep on these.
Yeah, finding themselves a lot more room to work around. Vici's earlier patience, because they lost so much gold in those 2 free kills that happened earlier on, starting to catch up. They're starting to get the ball rolling, and that means they need to actually get the next dragon. The dragons have been really unlucky with how the game's been turning out, so those 2 dragons, Earth and Infernal, they don't want a second Infernal going to FPX, and now they can finally start to look for fights to contest for it.
And definitely FPX will also be looking to try and contest those multiple item spikes completed across the board, including the Static Shiv, almost the completed Infinity Edge as well from LWX. Top lane, got the Trinity Force, mid lane, Abyssal Mass, jungle, Cinderhawk as well for Pepper.
I'd say it's a pretty good position for FPX in terms of just the itemizing that you mentioned out, because the Static Shiv for LWX means that he can, at the very least, help push the lane. It's not going to be completely against him. Right now, you could see all 3 members of Vici just kind of collapsing him, so he's not incentivized to be touching that wave unless if it's just for wave clear.
Just want to step up, really, yeah. Can't really seize this one if you are Vici, though they can maintain control over this jungle, and more importantly, control over the dragon area.
It's kind of poor timing in terms of the wave crashing. It's not too much of a wave. And of course, the support and AD carry of FPX are going to be here to defend it. Had the wave crashed sooner, they would have had an opportunity.
Ultimatum used by Gimgoon in the top lane, buying some time with the stopwatch, but will decide to back away on this one. Lots of members of Vici have disappeared into Fog of War, and Easyhoon has ultimate.
They're just kind of running from play to play. They really don't know what to do here for Pure Vici. Their initial play was to look for mid lane, and that didn't work out well for themselves. So they're just like, okay, maybe top lane to help out Loong. But now they're doubling down on that 1 cannon wave.
Going to mid lane, but it's into a Cassiopeia who has a lot of wave clear, and there's a Tristana there with a Static Shift. So again, the play fizzles.
Yeah, the Miasma Zone and the Static Shift to clear the wave. This is something you have to be afraid of if you're Vici, because you do want to break this turret, and it's going to be difficult if you cannot take down Cassiopeia. It starts with Cass. If you can kill her, then of course you don't have to worry too much about the wave clear because you can walk up to the turret. But there's so much, I wouldn't say disengage, but that re-engage factor with the Miasma and her ulti as well that makes you afraid of looking for a dive.
Maybe this is something that Vici can look towards. They've got 2 minutes left to do it, and that's the Herald here, if they want to move towards that area. But with the ward down now by FPX, it definitely won't be a sneak, though they might be able to challenge them. Doesn't seem like they're too keen on the idea, however.
Yeah, it takes too long to take Rift Herald. That's the biggest worry here. And even if you have that small window of Vici looking for base timings, Ryze and Kha'Zix coming back onto the map, Vici have their mind towards this. They know that the Rift Herald is always a possibility, so it's just forcing FPX to stick to their turrets that they have up. The top lane turret and the mid lane turret are the only saving graces that they have currently.
Almost dragging FPX into a Vici-like game, just like, oh, we'll scale, and you will scale, and that is how the game will go. But both teams have multiple members on the team who benefit from a late-game scaling composition, like Tristana, like Cassiopeia. You've got Xayah on the enemy team as well.
Yeah, I would say they're just kind of waiting on their windows of opportunity, because I've never seen FPX as a team that can just chillax and wait for the point in like 40 minutes into the game where they want a team fight. They just want to find an opportunity, a smart time to do so, and it's going to be all on Gimgoon to find that opportunity, because he's pushing into the matchup. That's great for him. But if he can find time to look mid for his hook shot into ulti, that would be excellent for FPX. They just need to set him up to do that.
Definitely good some good patience out from Vici. Waited until Pepper had gone into the bottom side of the map, instantly start up the Herald. We'll be able to take this one. Can't quite get to the eye though. There we go. That'll be finished off. So Eye of the Herald going over to Caveman. He's going to be the bearer of this one.
There we go. And this is going to be a good time for them to look for a mid lane play. I don't think they should drop it. It looks like they're positioning to drop it top lane. I think this is kind of a misplay just because of how hard it is to take the mid lane tower down. If they use it on the top lane tower, it may be easier to kind of take down, but right now the biggest force right now is taking down that pretty healthy mid lane outer.
That would be optimal, though. Caveman has popped the Eye of the Herald in top side of the map. Lots of FPX members here, however. It will be a 4 versus 4. See the health of the no, that's gone. That's 100% dead. Ah! Unfortunate. So FPX will lose that tower on top side, and Baron is going to be a big objective. Plus the fact that mid lane is completely exposed. Easyhoon's going to take this one for free.
Yeah, the entirety of FPX walked towards the top lane. They can't do anything about the tower, but they thought they could try and look for a fight afterwards. But they leave the mid lane tower completely exposed. That is such a massive I would say waste of time for FPX. They didn't need to look towards top lane unless if Vici as a team were going to threaten towards that inner top lane tower. But you have so much time to work around that. Just really a loss of vision of the play. The vision should have just been keep mid lane healthy. Don't worry too much about that top lane outer. But they put every single member that isn't Gimgoon towards the top side of the map.
Definitely a lack of mental clarity there during the play, and that's even more impactful now. That's actually really bad for FPX, not only because the tower died, but the fact that next objective is going to be towards this dragon, 10 seconds on Infernal, and they don't have a mid lane to run back to.
But that's why mid lane was so impactful. That mid lane outer turret allowed them to kind of stick their head out to take these objectives. The Infernal now it's going to be, and the Baron, they can at least protect it, put down the wards without necessarily feeling too weak, because they can always go back to the turrets that were available. Now they are not, so if they get engaged upon in these fights, they have to run. And it's going to be difficult to ask them that.
Yeah, Blue Wolf's not going to save him. He's the only one up in this bottom side. No bottom lane tower, no mid lane tower. So Vici, while there was a step up by FPX, it's not like they can really push too hard. If Caveman gets the flying cough, if he gets the ultimate down, gets the charm off, then this can go very badly for FPX very quickly. Both top lanes do have teleports, though Crisp and Pepper are contesting. It's enough for Sejuani to move forwards, but actually Dragon being dragged into the pit makes it very hard to move in. It's going to actually turn into a 50-50 here, and FPX gain control over the area. Sejuani comes in with the smite, and Vici have been routed right now. In comes the teleport out from both top laners, and Vici are trying to find a way out. Bing with a massive play there with a petrifying gaze. Doesn't find the stun, but does find the damage. Flash forward by Chris. He's trying to get the slowdown so he can pin a target down. Martin doesn't have the ultimate, doesn't have anything left. He'll fall in the backside of the fight, and now it's reset time in from LWX. He finds a bead onto Easyhoon, looking for the second kill. Pepper with the lockdown, and a double kill to LWX.
Really well done for FPX, knowing that top lane was getting focused down. This is all on Gimgoon, honestly. The fact that he was chasing down Loong, so he didn't find an opportunity to TP, so there was no massive tank for them. You were such a squishy bottom side of the map, you didn't have an engagement. Gimgoon just tracked down Loong. So that was a massive play, and now they're finding themselves taking both the mid lane tower, and they're in a great position to start Baron.
Really good cross-map communication. The fact that FPX were able to push up onto the dragon, look for the contest, and actually push Crisp away to the, Crash rather, to the point where he couldn't even smite the dragon, means 2 Infernals now, and that was such an important fight for FPX. Like, yes, they lost the Allo mid lane turret, but the Infernal, arguably even more important, as we mentioned before, in this game.
Yeah, great identification of the composition of Vici game, right? Just knowing that they didn't have a real true tank to walk up forward for their carries. So Martin didn't feel the reason, or at least the safety of walking forward. Easyhoon didn't see that either, because it was all on Loong being in the fight. They really rely on Loong being there. The fact that he wasn't means that Chris walks forward, Pepper throws out his ulti, and even though Caveman shows out his ulti, there's no follow-up for Bing. Take a look at this. Sure, Loong takes out Gimgoon from that factor. Who the hell cares if Gimgoon's not there? So at this point forward, you just get them chased down. This is pretty easy. Look, even LWX jumps early, just because he knows he can get the double jump with the death of
Martin.
Easy. Once Xayah dies, you can just keep jumping.
Really good stuff from LWX. Just good clarity in these team fights. 4-4 in kills, but more importantly, those objectives. 2 Infernals and a Mountain Dragon to FPX. Next Dragon is also going to be Infernal. It feels like the game even knows what type of game we're looking for here.
It's a really good kind of game state here for FPX. The fact that they can now rely solely on Gimgoon on side lane from isolating Loong for the rest of the team.
Actually sending Bing towards the top side now. Of course, the focus will be around this Baron here for both teams, but LWX, he's completely covered by the rest of his team. As you said in Champions League, Ryze, it's so hard to get on top of LWX as this game progresses in team fights.
Yeah, exactly. It's all on Sejuani, who is the major tank that's never going to be leaving a side lane. I mean, he's going to be always with the team in this sense. Look at the pings right now FPX are kind of levying. It's all towards the bottom side of the map. You see Ornn with the team, but how long is that going to last for if the Gimgoon is just going to be chipping down at this turret? Should be a free take for her.
It should be. At the same time, Gimgoon, everyone knows this, that Gimgoon does not have teleport right now, but they still have to address him. So as long as Gimgoon can stop Long from TPing again, they'll win the 4 versus 4 on the opposite side of the map.
Yeah. It's just that small window that if Loong is there, here comes the
Oh,
fight.
Easyhoon, he's been caught recalling. In comes the teleport as well from Loong, but he's already dead. Easyhoon is down for the count. Caveman goes into the back line, buys a bit of time, but now the rest of the team from FPX coming in for the flank as well. It's Gimgoon, and Crash wants to get out alive. He has to leave the rest of his team. And Loong by himself right in the middle of no man's land, right in the middle of FPX. They'll find 3 kills into the Baron now.
Yeah, Gimgoon was going to be at the flank. They recognized that was going to be the case, so they started the fight in such an advantageous position. It doesn't even feel like Vici Gaming feel comfortable in a team fight.
Gimgoon can just cover so much ground so quickly. Caveman even being chased after. Hook shot over the wall and the flash as well from earlier keeps up the chase. Gimgoon finds the final kill of the fight. That's even going to be staggered now. So as the rest of FPX move onto the map, they won't have the support there from Caveman for Vici in the next fight, even to defend their towers.
Here's the thing. This is where I'm really impressed with when it comes to FPX's mid game, because it's never been this clear. It's never been this clear cut. They take the fight, know that they can immediately take down Easyhoon. And sure, the TP comes through and Loong is going to be there, but look at the backside. Immediately, Martin was that one kiting back 80 carry, the one source of damage they were relying on that Easyhoon was down, and he's just isolated and assassinated.
Big problems for Vici right there, and as you said, fantastic flank coming in from Gimgoon. Instantly takes down Martin. He's got nowhere to run. Caveman's on the opposite side of the fight, trying to CC at least somebody up, but wasn't able to do enough for his team. And now FPX 8-4 in terms of kills. Next round is going to be that Inferno, as we said earlier, but coming up in 1 minute from now, they have control over the area, they can control over the bot side. And especially this ultimate lands right on to Caveman, disappears from the bot jungle. Vici want to try and get out of here. LWX very aggressive, but he's got a helper Chris coming in with the concussive blows. Mid lane, minions are coming in, so they can look for the siege now.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know how Vici are going to be able to fight this. This time around, at least they have Loong that can create some space, so if it's going towards this inhibitor tower, they might have an opportunity to go for this gank. They don't have much of a window.
Actually decides to try and go for this fight, looking towards Gimgoon now for the flank as well. Martin trying to kite back with Pepper's right on his face. In comes Gimgoon looking for the assassinate. Down goes Loong, and now it's chase down time for LWX, who's even looking for this jump into the base onto Martin. Ultimates him on the floor, and so is Martin.
That was incredible. That was the one fight that Vici, I can't blame them for taking, because you look towards where Gimgoon was at the time. Gimgoon was just about to hit that bottom side tower. So there is no way Ornn was going to be able to stay with the team for that long. And you know what? Play patient enough, FPX are going to be able to take this.
Eventually you're going to be able to find a fight that you can win. An opening in the armor of Vici. Caveman around the back just trying to, I don't know, do something right now because he can't do it. LWX just pats out scoreline though. And FPX, they'll take the 2-0 over Vici. They say, we'll meet you on the battlefields today.
We expected Vici to come into this series strong. That's what we expected. But FPX showed real growth into the mid-late game. And we expected the team fight for Vici to kind of come in, especially with Loong now on the battlefield. But that team fight was completely dominated by Gimgoon and LWX.
Definitely a call out. And Vici, they tried to meet them. They tried to meet them in the skirmishes, the fights, the early game and the mid game. But unfortunately, if you're playing the ball game of your opponents, if they've chosen the game, then they're going to have the natural advantage, and that's very much what happened in that game. FunPlus X will find their win here.
It was based on those 2 picks in Champion Select. I mean, Gimgoon finally found that champion. Isn't the high win rate Camille? Did quite well for herself in the laning phase. And it just kind of bled across the map, looking for plays in mid lane. Gets that free kill early on onto Ryze. And of course, once you leave her alone with the Ornn, Ornn doesn't want to take those fights. Not at all. He wants to be with his team, especially once they have Kha'Zix and Rakan, not a tank. So he definitely needs to be in the team fight. So he's not there for TP. He needs to be there to start with. Makes it all the better for Gimgoon to start hitting those towers up.
FunPlus and Phoenix definitely look better as a team, especially looking towards that mid game there, but I will still point out some of the weaknesses they had. The fact that playing around objectives, fantastic. Playing around towers, less than fantastic. Very much torn apart when you look towards Vici. Like, they are very much a smart team and will pull you away, move towards the top side of the map, and when you're talking about those outer turrets, looking at that mid lane, they completely left it open.
Yeah.
So Vici took that, and it was only because they're able to play around objectives so well, around that cross-map play, keeping Loong at bay, so there was no way that they could step up to that dragon. That's how they won out in the end.
Certainly there are definitely questions going into cross-conference about the macro that FPX have. Because a lot of the setup was honestly throughout the series still in favor of Vici a lot of these times. And Vici was still having some incredible TP plays. I mean, they were still looking for those fights. FPX, once they get a proper fight, they can execute it quite well. Seems like when they go up against Loong, LGD, and all that, those are going to be real tests of how do they actually set up for the fights. And it's going to be questions about how does Pepper play, because Pepper had some great team fights. I don't have any questions about Pepper and how he can play team fights. This is Lee Sin's Chris. It's great. But how can he play controlled around Bing? So I liked what I saw with Bing in the mid lane currently. I think there are going to be more power points, more ways to kind of make that better, make it look better going into a few sets.
I mean, FPX all have their inner demons to try and fight, you know, FPX, especially with Pepper and his early pathing. But as you said, as soon as they get to team fights, it's like a duck to water. Either way, that's going to do it from us. You're going to send it over to the analyst desk, though, to take a look at that series.
A big win for FPX, everyone. 2-0 over Vici Gaming. Clement, we now have a team in the LPL that beat the best in the league and the worst in the league.
On any given day, they could be the best team.
Yeah.
On any given day, they could be the worst.
Truly a random die roll, but still, we did see a good performance out of FPX in closing out this matchup. And let's go back to what they talked a little bit about during the cast, was the draft from FPX. They had a very clear idea from the beginning. We want to scale. We've got Tristana, we've got Cassiopeia, we've got some time, and Gimgoon and Sejuani to help us get towards those late games where we become a massive team fighting comp.
And this is the point that FPX can match with Vici, that scaling point. And just to mention, I felt that Cassiopeia pick was a great pick. 100% win rate so far in the LPL, and if you look at how that pick is played, it really stonewalls people from getting to your backline when you get those hyper carries like the Vayne that Snake likes to run, like the Tristana, and it also has lane priority in terms of the early to mid game. So that's a pick, though we might not see an 8.2 anymore. We have to keep in mind all the way till Chinese New Year.
Yeah, still a very strong champion, at least until that happens, but still, the fact that FPX are playing around that. Pepper, as we heard from the casters, he put on a really good show for us today. He's actually starting to show what happens when he starts to get a little confidence, a little wind under his wings, right?
And we can see that Pepper can play the team fights correctly. That's the big improvement for him. He's not just this one-trick pony, get and invade. If I don't die, I carry the game. If I die, GG boys. But he is going for like Sejuani, and this is a new face for them, really building their team around LWX and his ability to carry these games. However, I will say I think their early game has suffered quite a bit. Going down to Vici, the worst team in the LPL in terms of that early game, is kind of surprising from FPX. And a lot of these plays are decision-making plays that I don't think they're cohesive enough. That bot lane kill where Bing just forgot about the Ornn on the right side of the map. That was surprising for me.
A little silly.
And then the bot lane dive. You're going up against a Xayah that has 4 seconds of in-targetability. Trying to dive that was very, very questionable.
Look, it comes back to the same thing we always talk about with FPX. They're still a young team. They still have a lot to learn and grow. And maybe it's individual learning, maybe it's team-wide learning, but still, they've got time.
My read on the situation is if they're not the ones doing the proactive plays, they don't really have the ability to read what's coming at them. That's the reason that they can't recover from their bad early games. That's the reason they're falling behind when Loong takes the initiative from them. So they need to be able to read. Read what the other team is throwing at them, and that's going to come down to one of these shot callers here.
Well, we'll have to see how they do that. Our MVP for that matchup goes to LWX. He's our man of the match, 6-1-5, 36% of his team damage, showing, hey, if you allow me to late game carry, I will late game carry.
That's what he is known for. The Kog'Maw always banned out from this guy, and just look at the stat line. It's just doing monstrous games over and over.
Yeah, it's quite impactful to see him constantly go towards these late game carries as he is so big in these fights. Here we can see the 4v4 that really kicks FPX's momentum off.
And in this fight, we have to talk about, just more than the fight, how this was set up. Vici, I think their biggest weakness right now is they don't understand which objective team fights they can set up, which fights they have to avoid. They don't really have a good team fight 4-man. You have a Rakan and a Kha'Zix. If you don't get the jump on the enemy team, you're never going to win any of these 4v4s. What they should have done was pulled Ornn to the fight, secure that dragon, and then he still has his teleport to defend the towers if need be. So Vici, when they get the lead and they're moving into the objectives, they don't know how to set up for it. That's the biggest takeaway we can see from this series so far.
Yeah, we're still seeing Vici try to set the tempo in these games, which is at least an improvement over what we've seen a few weeks ago, but they need to do it correctly. They've got to set up their wards in advance. They can't just have Crash wildly swinging his way around the map.
Exactly, and Gimgoon really got the better of him And I really like what Gimgoon did before that fight. He chunked the Ornn out. So Ornn didn't have the choice to really teleport. He was fearing that if he did the teleport in front of Camille, Camille would just kill him. Yeah, so that was a great play from Gimgoon, trading with purpose and keeping the macro picture in his mind.
Well, the macro worked out for FPX in this game. We've actually got a special interview lined up for you. Vincent is going to be speaking with Pepper.
Hi everybody, I'm Vincent. I'm a Chinese caster from Ryze China, and today I'm here joined by Pepper from FunPlus X. Hello Pepper, could you say hi to the audience? Hello. Say hi. Okay, first question. Congratulations on your second victory this split. Actually, it's been quite a while from the first victory against Snake. We was back in week 1, and what actually happened between all these time? 第一个问题就是说，其实你们这一场第2场的胜利非常的恭喜。那第一次的胜利其实是第一周跟 Snake 的对战。那么这一段时间里面呢，你们队伍遭遇了什么样的困难？然后今天做出了什么样的调整才获得这个胜利？
主要是就是我们就是比较紧张吧，在 LPL 赛场这边，其实就是磨合方面就很多潜在的问题也没有暴露出来，所以就吃了几个失败的结果吧。
那今天呢？
今天的话就是总结一下之前我们输的原因，就是团战啊，还有对线啊各方面的，就改进了很多，所以才能拿到今天胜利吧。
So actually, we were quite nervous about playing at LPL, and the first victory against Snake was, part of it was because of luck, but later on, our team fight, our landing phase, all the kind of problems are exposed. That's why we lost quite a big game, quite some games. But right now, today, playing against Vici, I think we fixed all those problems and we played pretty well. So that's why we won. Okay. So my second question would be, Lee Sin has always been quite a pocket pick for you, and even though it's a little bit off meta. What's the pros and cons of Lee Sin, under current meta, and do you enjoy playing him? 就盲僧这个英雄对你来说的话呢，其实一直都是一个你个人的一个口袋选择。那么就算说其实版本不是很合适，你也是会拿出来用。那对你来说，能不能跟大家聊一下呢？就是这个版本的盲僧，它有哪些好处跟坏处？然后你喜欢玩盲僧吗？
我是对盲僧这人是很喜欢的。我觉得这版本就是对盲僧也很不友善吧，但是这个盲僧这个英雄的好处的话有很多，就是一开始就是第一点就是可以开团，第二点的话就前期可以带动很多节奏吧，而且第三点就是不知道为什么，就是我在打排位的时候就是玩这英雄就很顺手，就有很多精彩操作都能做出来，
上了很多分嘛。
对，就很自信吧对这个英雄。
所以你很喜欢玩吗？
对。
So actually, yes, Lee Sin is quite against the meta currently, but I think Lee Sin is very good at engaging and also very good at early ganking. And one more thing is that actually when I'm playing in solo queue rank, Lee Sin actually gave me a lot of victory and a lot of points, so that's why I really enjoy playing Lee Sin. All right, so here's my third question. You've been playing with RNG, a lot of star players in RNG, and now you're playing with FunPlus X, and you have a whole bunch of new teammates. How do you like them, and could you describe their characters? Could you tell us who they are? 你之前在 RNG 服役嘛，然后就是也跟 RNG 很多超级明星选手一起在打比赛。那你现在在 FunPlus 服役的感觉，就是你能够跟我们聊聊，就是这些队友的个性像是什么样子吗？就给我们介绍一下你的这些队友。
之前的话我在 RNG 就是因为我的队友就环境都是比较优秀的，就队友都打得很好的，所以的话我压力会比较大，就是比较紧张，就很放不开吧。但相对于 FunPlus 来说的话，就是大家都是一起奋斗的队友吧，就是一起努力的，所以就没有太大压力，就可以放飞自我这样子吧。
那这些队友都是相处得很好的，
都很好，大家都挺开心的。
So when I was playing with RNG, actually, they yes, they are superstar players. So I am under a lot of pressure. But since I come to FunPlus X, you could say that we are working together as a team, and they are all good people. So that I really enjoy playing with my new teammates, and I hope that we can get better. 非常恭喜，再次恭喜你获得了这第2场比赛胜利，希望你们在赛季接下来好好加油。那是不是能够过了个好年呢？
赢了 I 区吧，希望能赢了 I 区吧。
So his final word is that actually they are playing against IG next game. They hope that they can win against IG and have a very good Chinese New Year. All right, thank you guys. Now we're going back to Dom and Clement.
Thank you so much for that spectacular interview, Vincent and Pepper. Once again, big congratulations to FPX. But now it's time for us to move on. We've got our match of the week coming up in just a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere because it's about to get hype.